Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the full speed Bat 100. Now I'm pretty excited about this one because on paper this one is set to be one of the best, if not the best, one cell brushless micros. So I've had a lot of requests to check this one out and here it is. It's taken some time to get here, so let's take a look at the specifications. So it is a stretched X carbon frame. It's very thin and that is to make this thing very light. It weighs without its battery just 30 grams and then 44 grams with its battery, and if we compare that to a brushed equivalent there, then this one I think weighs something like 60 grams of the battery. So, you know, it's pretty amazing what they have achieved here if everything works correctly. So the motors are the 0705 full speed motor, so it's their own motor, and you might notice that it's using Hubsan style props. I think they're a bit bigger than Hubsan props though. I think they're 56mm, something like that. And they fit the 8mm shaft size, so you could experiment with different propellers if you wanted to. But let's take a look at some of the main features because, well, if this works, it's just astonishing, really. So, of course, these are brushless motors here, and then we have got 6 amp all-in-one 1S ESCs with a peak of 7 amp. So, yeah, this is just purely for a 1S battery, which it comes with. And then we've got a Omnibus F3. It's the tiny 1S Omnibus, so again just takes the 1S. It's got a built-in on-screen display running through Betaflight 3.17. These ESCs also support B Al-Hali S and D-Shot 600. I know, wow. And we have a beeper on the top for a lost model alarm and also the low battery warning as well. So everything that you would expect from a top-notch 5-inch we have got here. So we have got the camera and VTX combo up the front. It's 25mm 48 channel. It's one of these usual cameras that we are used to here. It's called the VM2751. So you've got a button on the front there, and I think a short press flips the image, a longer press switches between NTSC and PAL, and then a long press of the back button there switches between the different bands, and then a short press goes through the individual channels, and we've got a sleeve dipole up the top there. Now, like all of the full speed models out there, it's a plug and fly, so you do have to add your own receiver, which I've done, and it's quite tricky actually because there's no instructions on how to do that. So what I'll do is I will overlay some footage here of me taking the top off so that you can see the order of the pins there. So we have got the red, which is the 5 volt, and then the black, which is the ground, and then the yellow there is the signal, and there's also a 3 volt on there as well, so if you want to use Spectrum as well you can. And the receiver that I am using, it's this S-Bus one here. It's the FD800. It's tiny. It actually has telemetry on there, so hopefully it won't cause any brownouts. Speaking of brownouts, let's take a look at the battery. It's a 500 milliamp 30C unbranded battery. It's held in with these bands here, and it's using a MCPX style connector, which is like a 2mm JST there. You aren't given a charger in the package, so I'm going to be using my own charger. In fact, you're not given much else in the package. We have got a spare set of props, which is nice, but you can buy more of those. I'd suggest that you do that. And then we have got a spare Velcro pad as well. I guess that's for attaching to your battery there as well. Now the camera's on this little tiny 3D printed mount, and it does look a little bit loose. It does have some sticky tape on there though to keep it in, so I'll have to see how that goes. As for the Betaflight setup, it has got some strange rates. I've changed my rates to 0.8 and the RC rate at 1. They like to set these things up for racing rather than freestyle. If you ever watch any of Full Speed's videos, they have a Facebook group and their own channel. They build these for racing, but of course I like to do freestyle, so I change up the rates. It has got a min throttle, so the digital idle speed of 13, which I have kept the same, and it looks like it's got custom PIDs as well, so I'm gonna try those out. I've also moved around some of the on-screen display stuff as well, and you need to enable the serial RX on the UART3 if you are using a Spectrum or a S-Bus receiver, so that's something else that you have to do. Other than that though, I think I've kept it pretty standard. So as this does not come with a charger, I'm going to try this one out. It's a tiny Whoop style charger, and you can either plug a XT60 in there, so straight from a battery, or you can plug in USB, so I'm gonna do that there, and then this should just plug into one of these here and charge. Make sure that I got the polarity correct. See there, it's actually already charged, but yeah, this is what I'm going to be using here, because this one will charge at 1 amp, which is pretty nice. So yeah, I will link this in the description if you want to check it out. So I have set this up on my Taranis and bound it. So I've set the aux one on a 2-position switch, then I've got angle, acro, and air there, and then I've also got this one set up on a buzzer as well for a lost model alarm. So yeah, let's go and see how it flies. Okay, let's go for a takeoff in angle mode. Having to turn away from the sun because it's quite early in the morning here. Let's go for a punch. Yeah, so you're only really going to get from this what you get from a brushed model in terms of power, but that's no bad thing. The motors are very noisy as well, and I think that's because they don't have bearings in them, and I think Full Speed are working on a version with bearings in them to make it quieter, but it doesn't seem to affect the performance at all, and it's still fairly quiet. So what we have here is basically a QX95 with brushless motors and an on-screen display and a buzzer. Okay, let's see what it's like in acro mode. See how well it's tuned. Obviously I won't fully know till I do FPV with it, but it's acting alright so far, I have to say. I think these stretched X-frames, they are better for racing really than flipping about, but it's doing it and it feels controlled. Yeah, plenty of power there to pull out of these maneuvers as well. So yeah, I'm pleased with it. The voltage warning is set really low, it's like 2.8 volts, but I guess they are expecting a lot of sag from this battery, with it just being a 1S. That's fairly normal, so I've left that as it is. It's pretty nice. You can hear how noisy those motors are. Like I say, I don't think it's vibrations, I think it's rattles from having no bearings. We could be onto a winner here, you know. I'm not seeing any brownouts. Obviously you have to wait until the FPV flight to confirm all that, but I'm having fun with it. The power's consistent. They also have some prop protectors for this one as well. I think if you look on Banggood, they got them there. I'm starting to feel a little bit of sag there, so I'll come in for a landing, I'll get another battery on and I'll do some FPV with it. So here is some DVR footage taken from my Fatsharks. It's a pretty gloomy day, sadly, but this camera, it's really, really good, and I am struggling to fault this model. It is really fantastic. I think if I tried to build something like this myself, I think I'd actually fail, because the fact that it's got all of these features and it's running off a 1S, it's mind-blowing. You know, there's no brownouts, there's no problems, and one thing that I really love about this is it's just been so easy to review. It's only taken just a couple of hours to get everything set up and everything filmed. There was nothing just stopping me from having a great time. So what we have here is, like I was saying before, it's a QX95 but with brushless motors, so they're going to be a more reliable motor. We've got a fully working on-screen display. We've got D-Shot on the ESCs. And not only that, I installed that receiver there, and can you see on the right hand side of the on-screen display, that's the RSSI. So again, you know, some of these 2S micros, when you start putting telemetry on the receiver, that's when it can start to brown out. Just not even close with this one. You can take the battery right down to its death and it just didn't brown out. You know, like, it's not got a huge amount of power like some of those 2S models, but you know, if you're comparing it against the features of the likes of a QX95, this has got more, and it's brushless. It's amazing, you know. And one telling thing about this model that I really liked it is, after all the cameras were turned off, sometimes I just go and have a rest and do something else, but with this one I just kept charging the battery up and flying it. And that's another thing as well that I was impressed with this model, is that a lot of the times the batteries that they are including with these models are inadequate. This one absolutely fine, and I think if you used maybe a even higher C battery, if you got hold of one of those, then you might even get more power out of it as well. But as you can see, I'm able to do my normal maneuvers. I just have to make sure that I give myself a little bit more height. And you know, I've been looking forward to reviewing this one because I spoke to Lewis from Full Speed, and he said that this is like one of his favorites, like it's their greatest achievement. And yeah, I can agree. You know, somehow this combination just on 1S manages to power all this stuff up and work, and there's no noise coming through to the camera. Some 5-inch setups can't achieve that, you know. So this has got everything. It really has, you know. You have to provide a receiver, but this is a 5-volt receiver working off a 3-volt battery, so you think that will put a lot of strain on it, but it doesn't. It just works. So yeah, the flight time, I was getting 4 and a bit minutes. I did get a 5-minute flight, just flying around a little slower. And if you got those prop protectors as well, you could mess around indoors. And with it being the 8mm motor shaft size, you could experiment with different props, because there's so many different props out there. I'm not saying that it doesn't work well with these ones, but you know, you could try Hubsan propellers and all sorts of stuff like that. We've got tri-blades that fit this size as well. Of course, you'll be reducing your flight time there. But yeah, I have to say, this is the best 1S brushless model so far, and I do stress so far. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.